Good evening and welcome to EvilGinger Miniatures, where I'm going to indulge myself in a little bit of live stream modelling in the middle of the night, because this is when I'm awake, so why not make some use of it. This is part 2 of a mini-series that I'm planning, showing the various stages of this operation. Part 1 was, as I record this, last night. I will be knocking up a playlist with them all in individually, and they're in one of my other playlists anyway, but I'll have to have a look at that. This was a bit of a last minute thing, as I've been painting brasswork on Chaos Space Marines for several months, it feels like now, and I need to do something that isn't Chaos Space Marines and will stop me wanting to do unpleasant things involving Nottingham and parts of Lenton. So here's a bit of scratch building I was doing for therapy. Basically, to reprise, it's built from milliput blocks, glued and stuck together either with other milliput blocks, because milliput sticks to itself, or with super glue, standard super glue. Usually use the gel type because it goes where you put it and stays there. The foam is clump scenery from Woodland Scenics, comes off one of their big bags of stuff for trees, and they've been painted with a mixture of army paints, MP paints, and Reaper Miniatures paints. And basically this is generic grubbed out ruins. The bases are by war bases, and they are their normal either vehicle, I think this is a vehicle base, and the bigger ones are terrain bases. They're not explicitly for 28mm, but that's what I had in mind when I was building them. They could be used for smaller scale, or even perhaps bigger scale, though as that's a 2-room house, a 40mm figure, that would be a fairly small little hovel with a couple of rooms in it, and the doors would possibly be too narrow, unless you were thinking of something like Scar of Grey, which is tight, very compact, shall we say. There's another bit, there's a longer bit. Again, stones, the broken bits on the base are just bits of grit from the sharp sand that I used to cover the base with, and that is just picked out in grey to make it look like fragments of the rock that the building's built out of. That's 2 small houses, 2 small hutlets, and that's the same base, same size base. This one is another vehicle base. You can always tell with war bases, if they got them the right way around, there's a little etched thing which is the bounds that you need to put your vehicle in. They're mainly designed for scale modelers who like to base their models. These are still soft. I did consider between part 1 and part 2 hardening these off by putting dilute white glue in them, working that into them, but these are fairly big bushes, and that can take at least overnight to dry and can also take days. So I'm going to do the grass first and then go back to the hardening them off as the last stage. You can do that with white glue, because most white glue dries completely clear, and those that don't, Gorilla Glue doesn't entirely dry white. It sometimes leaves a deposit on the surface, and there are some other glues. There's got another one that I got over there that I don't use for this because it's got something in it that makes it just look a little bit. That's a texture I don't like to the surface, and you have to obliterate that by using green paint, which rather defeats the object of using a self-coloured product like the Army Painter. That's dark green. I've also used middle green, and if it was more bushy, with more bush on there, I'd have used 2 greens to give a bit of variety. But I think it's got enough variety with the grey, the brown, the and the 2 colours of static grass that I'm going to be using. These are static grasses that I have accumulated over the years. This is a mid-green, and I also have a light green. And basically it's whatever vaguely the similar colour static grass that I bought in small packets over the years and just chucked in there. Normally I do one and then the other, but for tonight's purposes I'm going to be doing both, but I'm not going to be doing both of the bases with both of the static grasses, as the glue that I'm going to use, which is this, takes several hours to dry. So what I will do is I will do enough to show you what I'm doing tonight, and tomorrow night when I do this again I will have got to the point where I'll have done both on both sets of bases. On both sets of bases. The approach I use is basically 2 colour camouflage. Again, this is stylized wargaming role-playing scenery, not mega realistic, because if it was mega realistic there would be less of there'd be a gradient in these grasses, and I just mix the whole lot together to get a springish mix or a summerish mix or an autumnish mix, depending on the growth phase of the grass. But I will go and do the thing that I haven't done, which is get myself a dead paintbrush. This is a very dead paintbrush. This is an Expo Tool size 4, and it has seen, as you probably can see, much better days. That, by the way, is mechanical damage from primering with the brush over the years. It basically just grinds the hairs off. The actual proper ones, and I don't have one to hand that I'm using currently, are quite nice brushes. Expo don't last as long as the wall bases one, but wall bases don't do size 4s. So you win. These are the blocks that the things are made of. They're just, the green ones in here are made from green stuff, spare bits, and the yellowish bits is standard milliput spare bits. And this is the top of a Pringles tube, which make quite good pallets for this sort of thing. And that is the water thing that I thought was empty. It's full. Bear with me a moment while I go and fix this. I'm a professional, you know, I do this for a living. Also, it's 4 AM in the morning in the UK, so I might not be entirely awake. All right, just got this. This beetroot jar is just fresh water. Again, what you use for thinning down the paint and the glue. And I didn't put the thingy in the end of here, and the cap's disappeared. Long since on this one, so it's a little bit catched up. Right. I normally put a matchstick or something in the tip of these. This one is thoroughly blocked. They're designed to be able to cut the end off. And this happens. And this, by the way, is just a wire spear. It's usually used for clearing out dropper bottle paints. Yeah. Think about putting something in there that will stop that coming off like that. Again, just standard white glue. It's really, really boring stuff. A little bit of water in it so it flows a bit. And this, and just double it on there. Again, because it's somewhat stylized, I don't want to cover the whole thing with the same colour static grass, because there's going to be 2 colours of static grass on each of these, even if I'm doing only 1 colour at a time. So I'm basically painting a section, and then I will be painting another section. Also, as I'm probably going to put some tufts on here just to add a bit of variety, I prefer to stick the tufts down to the soil effect, which is just, as I say, sand and painted sand, sun glued on with white glue like this. We'll get a better setup for doing this at some point. Consider making a small donation to help me buy something like a GoPro or a camera that I can record off, because this is just being done off the laptop. As I say, that's one, and there will be two sorts of grass on here. When you do all this over the box, I often use old style sort of dinner trays to do things on, because it's all cardboard trays. But as I'm in mid clearing up, I don't have any to hand, so I'm going to be. Also, they're a bit unwieldy for working one-handed with when you're in front over a laptop keyboard. Again, a better setup wouldn't do me any harm, but I'm working on it. Trust me, I'm always working on stuff to make things better. As I can say, there you are. That you just squash down with your fingers, because it's meant to look like natural, and natural grass doesn't all stick up nicely. So that's one of the reasons I don't use applicators, to be honest, because they look too lawn-like for my liking. And if you go and walk out in the field in Europe or the UK, you'll see your grass is all over the place. Mostly it stands up, but especially if it's been trampled by animals or people have passed over it, it's not your beautiful spiky manicured lawn. And again, if you wanted to be very realistic, you'd add an awful lot more varieties of static, mix in a lot to the static grass, so you'd get better coverage and a lot more gradient of colour. But this is going to get used for various games, including demos of D&D with models, which I have planned up, so I can recruit some more players. I mean, for my various 5e campaigns and for other D&D-like games that I like as much, like Kenzo Coast Hackmaster. And of course, this is very, very useful for any sort of Gothic skirmish game, like Silver Bayonets or Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, or you name it, there are dozens of them. As I say, I'm only doing this partially, because I will be doing the other half in the other static glass. You just use this like ordinary flock, to be honest. You can go to an extreme with static grass and applicators and that sort of thing, but I've never found the need, and I think it looks a lot more naturalistic if you do it like this. As I say, that's only partly done. Let's open there for a moment. And as I say, both of these, I have in the past used 3 static grasses on there, and you get 3 shades of green colour camo style pattern. This is the mid green, and I had a darker dry green mix. Because I'm talking to people and it's the middle of the night, a bit of coffee doesn't do any harm. It's doing the same as before. It doesn't matter if it gets in the bush, and it doesn't matter if it gets on the stonework, because, as I say, it dries clear, and if it dries with any does leave a residue and you don't like it, you can always overpaint it. These are not, as a general rule, varnished. that you could. Because they're fairly pretty robust, and they don't get handled that much. They get put down and taken up, and that's pretty much what I do. I'm just going to do this little bit in this colour, this darker green. Same technique, you're just pushing it into the glue so you get more of it to stick. Most of it shakes off, and if it lodges in the terrain or the bushes, you can use other brushes, you know, coarse brushes. If it was a nylon-y type one, just to dust with once it's all dry. These do, however, shed a little bit, but don't be too worried about that. They get to a point like paintbrushes where they shed at the start, and then once all the loose stuff that isn't actually stuck down is off, they'll then stop shedding. This works on all manner of scales of terrain and size of base. So it's everywhere, and I'm working in a tiny little space, literally over a laptop keyboard here. Before I do tonight's bit, which will be, the next stage, which is, as I should be tomorrow at a similar sort of time, I will go back across the light green areas and do the dark green, and across this one and do the light green. So that will all be done. And the whole setup will be in a playlist on here, and I will be linking it all up onto the Facebook group where there are more people at the moment. So feel free to subscribe if you like this sort of thing and would like to see this channel as it develops and be at the beginning of something bigger, I hope, because there will be more stuff than me staring at a laptop at point blank range doing stuff. And the other thing about the dusting things is I can then remove all the static drives to the keyboard. So hopefully in future I'll be modelling on proper workbenches and using a camera, either a GoPro in my head, so you won't have to look at my ugly face because I won't be showing me, or I'll be swapping between cameras and I'm recording these and chopping them. I am learning how to video edit at the moment. It is not a skill that comes naturally to me. Anyway, that is nearly 20 minutes of me waffling away and waving pieces of terrain at you. And I think that's more than enough for most people. So I will leave that for now, and I will come back and do some more of this later. I may also put some more, put the glue in. Though, as I say, I'm not 100% sure that it will be dry if I don't do it immediately. And they're going to take 3 or 4 hours to dry at least before I start tapping the grass off. Because the next stage of doing it is you basically get me tap them off, and a lot of loose stuff falls off, and then you basically give them a gentle brush with something like that to get even more of the stuff off. It'll still shed for a bit after that, but that's enough for now, and I've already done the outro, so why am I carrying on waffling? Anyway, thank you very much, and I will speak to you again, I hope. Goodbye, and thank you.